Now, when I made the film Demons on My Head, this was back in, I think, 1999 in Australia. And everybody was still shooting 35mm or 16mm, and that was the cool thing to do. I took the film down to the Screen Producers Association in Sydney, and I started showing the film around, because I was, as far as I knew, I'd done the world's first digital film, which was kind of frowned upon. And I thought it was a cool idea, but everyone else said, oh, you should be shooting 35mm, blah, blah, blah. In fact, I got a lot of shit from a lot of people in Sydney because I did not shoot on 35mm or 16mm. I was considered a hack and an amateur, and probably not very serious. So that was all nice. You know, I was getting a lot of criticism from a lot of people because I chose not to shoot 35mm. I mean, apart from the fact that I couldn't afford it, was probably one good reason. But then George Lucas and Rip McCallum turned up at the Screen Producers Association meeting, and they were saying, oh, look, where's Neil Johnson? We heard he did a digital film. And so they basically tracked me down and wanted to talk to me about the film. It was kind of cool because here's a guy I'd idolized my entire life, and they were basically asking me, you know, questions about how I did it digitally, what I did to sort of make it more look like film. And it was very cool, and it was kind of proving to me that I was on the right track for once in my life. You know, I kind of trusted my instincts and thought, oh, maybe I should do a digital film, not knowing that anyone else would even really cared about these things. And so it was, I guess, the start of the revolution. I'm not saying I was the first or I started it or anything else, but in the early days, it was just good to know I was on the right track. And you can see now how the whole thing's taken off. Everybody's shooting digital, and it's a cool thing.
It's cool to know that, you know, you were on the right path to start with. I guess maybe I'm maybe a couple of steps further than most people because I've been through the hardships of it and found the limitations of it as well. I can see why people want to shoot 35mm. I still consider that a great format, and once digital gets up into that level of 35mm of getting the same texture, it's going to be a truly amazing format, and I'm looking forward to the future. In the shadow of George Lucas, I decided to do a special edition of Demons in My Head. So there was Demons in My Head, the special edition. Now this was an interesting thing to do because, okay, I took the original film, which didn't have many effects, and I decided just before September 11 happened, I was actually in New York, and decided I would do a music video for a band called Gamma Ray, who are a German band. And so I did this music video with them throwing bombs at the World Trade Center, and you know, you see the World Trade Center on fire, you see the eclipse behind the World Trade Center. I was obsessed with it, and I think the week before I actually did a photo montage of the World Trade Center, and I got these amazing photos. And I was chatting to a friend of mine. I said, you know, one day they're going to have to bring this down. I mean, how are they going to do that? These things are so huge. And I've got these great photos. Then I did this music video, and I was obsessed with it in my head. I just couldn't get the World Trade Center stuff out of my head for some reason. And then a week later, the World Trade Center thing happens. The planes crash and they've come down, and everyone's freaking out, of course. And of course, I'm sitting there thinking, this is ridiculous. You know, I pictured this stuff happening in my head only a couple of weeks before this. And now I've got this music video, it's been sent out to the TV stations, and it's going to be played, and it's got footage of the World Trade Center on fire. And it was due to be played the very same day this happened. So I had to pull in all my resources and take the music video back in, and we had to recut the music video, and instead of doing it in New York, we put the band in outer space and changed it quite dramatically and built the city in outer space and stuff. I was able to take these outer space 3D cities and then use them in Demons in My Head. So that's where the special edition of Demons in My Head came from. It was kind of, you know, stealing a bit from here and there to make it happen. So yeah, so then there was the ultimate edition of the film, and that was released on DVD by Brain Damage. I mean, it was a very quick release, but, you know, kind of had a more improved special effects. But, you know, we come to the point where we want to be on high quality, high definition, and of course the film's taken a totally different direction. So I've taken parts of that, put it together with some new footage we shot, and it's now called March of the Nephilim. Of course, it is a different film. That's very obvious when you look at it. Originally in Demons in My Head, the Nephilim came from the planet Nephilim. But I decided, you know, my favorite planet is Mars, and I decided, okay, well, let's make the Nephilim come from Mars. Mars has been a planet I've loved since like War of the Worlds, obviously. It's a really interesting planet, and it's one of our most accessible planets because we have so many great images from that planet. It's interesting that as the Viking orbiters went over Mars, you know, photographing the surface, they actually picked up the image of a face. Of course, you know, this could be a trick of light and shadow, as people said. However, then you have these pyramids surrounding the face, and these amazingly geometric pyramids, 5-sided pyramids, you know, 4-sided pyramids, huge fields of pyramids all around the face. It starts to become a bit silly when NASA starts, you know, denying this stuff is real, and then they re-photograph it and they say, yeah, look, there's all these strange objects appearing on the surface of Mars. Interesting point about Mars, by the way. Cairo in Egypt, where the pyramids are, the word Cairo actually means Mars. I guess it's debatable whether there really is something on Mars, but you have to be pretty blind not to see some of these things as being very obvious. There's a problem with all this, and there's why would NASA even deny this, or, you know, why would NASA not be interested in this? Well, officially they say yes, of course we'd be interested if we find artifacts on you know, any other planet. But it's a known fact that in 1959 the Brookings Institute issued a report that said, if we in fact find artifacts on other planets, officially we are not going to tell the American people. Now that's pretty much something that's enforced and is in effect to this day with NASA. If NASA discover artifacts on another planet, they will not tell the American people. The reason for this is a study was done looking at the effects on Samoans. Basically when white people, modern white people, came to Samoa and introduced themselves to the culture, the Samoan culture fell apart and the original primitive spiritual culture they had disintegrated. And based upon this model, it was decided that, you know, if the American people were ever subjected to proof of life on other planets, aliens, and I think they're specifically speaking about the Bible Belt people who would be very upset by this, then it's very possible that society will crumble. This is a possibility. I mean, if you find out for real that yeah, there are aliens, the churches are going to fall apart, you know, and people are going to go crazy and all sorts of stuff is going to happen. So there is the fear that, you know, modern culture will be eradicated, you know. And of course in 1959 this sort of stuff was really a big problem. I think in modern day times we have, thanks to people like Spielberg, we have a lot more knowledge about aliens, and we are probably much more accepting of the notion of discovering life on other planets. I mean, okay, they discovered a meteorite and said may include, you know, some sort of bacteria that came from Mars. So, you know, when the announcement that life was discovered on Mars, which, you know, may or may not be true, people didn't care. People said, oh, this is nice. So I think modern society has evolved to a point where, yes, we can be accepting of, you know, discovering life on other planets. But what if we discover that we were genetically manipulated by aliens or whatever? What if we discover that, you know, we were not created by God in the Garden of Eden, and we were a slave race, and we're really just refuse, genetic refuse, left on the planet after some futuristic alien culture has raped this planet? I think that's really going to impact on society in a heavy way. So maybe films like this are going to be good to opening people's minds up into the possibility of the future of humanity. We have to look at these ideas and concepts. We have to look them in the eye and say, okay, is this a reality? Is this a possibility? Because I mean, you know, how much proof have we got? Well, we do have writings in the Bible, we do have pyramids on Earth, we do have ancient myths and stories, and pretty much the oldest culture known to man, the Sumerian race of people, did say we're a product of alien genetic manipulation. So, okay, we're going to accept the Bible because it's 2,000 years old, but what if we've got something that's 5,000 years old that says something, you know, agrees with this, but then goes on a little bit further and says, okay, we were pretty much bred by aliens to be slaves? Shouldn't we listen? Or shouldn't we at least take this on board? You know, okay, you're brought up as a Catholic, that's nice. Doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's correct. So we really have to look at these things and really examine in our own head what is a reality. We have to be prepared that one day we will be faced with a truth that may not be pleasant. or may not make us happy, and it's how we deal with that. So that's why these films are so important.